Hello. See, now we're recording. I wish I could be like NPR or something, but
You're not.
no. I'm going to go back in my little house in Waco where everybody can see my fire extinguisher and laundry.
Need your NPR voice.
Hello, everyone. This is Jackye Clayton. ISIS, Donald Trump. ISIS, Donald Trump. ISIS, Donald Trump. I pretty much, that's all they do. Oh, and now Rubio, ISIS, Donald Trump. That's kind of where we're at. But
Crazy.
I'm glad. Oh, so Katrina is here.
Yay.
Katrina, we asked Chris to join us because he's here and he knows a lot about this topic too.
Yeah, I happened to see your tweet and thought I'd join. So
Yeah, I love that. So
Beauty of the
really, yay! Can you even breathe, Katrina?
No. I'm working on it.
Okay.
I mean, it's been about a week now, I guess.
You're doing better.
A week of pneumonia, you know.
It's better.
She was like, "Oh, I had a really bad headache, and I went to the doctor, and it's pneumonia. But I'll be online if anybody needs anything." Yeah, let me see exactly what I need from someone who has pneumonia. Oh, nothing as long as it didn't include breathing, right?
Yeah.
or
Okay.
thinking. Or like
Get seriously, that's strike one. 2 more coughs, and you need some tea.
And she's
you're
gone.
getting off.
she's gone.
That's strike one. She's like, okay, see? So, how not to F up your software selection.
So easy.
And-
so easy.
Well, I think we were talking about the concept. I didn't really give people a little background on how we came to this. So we were kind of talking, it's the end of the year. Everyone's doing their what's happening in 2016. What can I do in 2016 conversation, right? And so we were kind of brainstorming topics, obviously, for our blabs. And I was like, we should talk about, those little mishaps that you only get when you talk to a friend. Like when you're picking a new technology, a lot of times I find that I read a lot of reviews, but my next step is always to ask someone. Like,
Right.
I'll go to Bridget and be like, hey, have you used this before? Like, what do you like about it? Or if she hasn't, I'll ask somebody else. But I always ask because there's that one little nuance. There's that little thing that you just don't know because you've never used it before. You're like, oh, I didn't know I couldn't schedule 5 tweets at once or, that kind of thing. And the roundup of people we have here, I guess I'm more of a moderator today because these guys are all the experts. And like, obviously we all know that Jackye does the recruiting tools reviews, and those, I think they're spot on and they give people a really honest perspective. Reading Jackye's articles sometimes to me feels like I'm asking my friend, right?
You kind of are, though.
And obviously, exactly. But obviously, and Jackye's one of the hosts of this, so duh, she's going to be here. But Bridget has sat on the side of the buyer. So you've probably had a few of those mishaps yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I sat on the buyer side and also I worked in an RPO, so I was buying for clients. And I found usually the biggest mishap was people were buying technology when they didn't actually need the technology or they didn't know why. They were buying into the hype of something and it wasn't necessarily going to solve any problems, and it ended up adding steps onto their process, and it caused a lot of like aggravation between hiring managers and recruiters or even the candidate side. So yeah.
Well, and I think that it's important to differentiate between enterprise and agency. Because I think the biggest mishap that I see when I was on the agency side is that people were buying individual licenses to software that they like. I know that happens a lot with my tools because I do a lot of extensions. And so one person might be using the extension. Maybe somebody's using Crystal and somebody isn't. So the recruiting efforts are not consistent.
Right.
On the enterprise side, I think that happens. But the biggest issue is what I call golf decisions, meaning everybody was like hanging out playing golf and someone said, oh, well, I use da-da-da. They're like, oh, I'm going to go do that. And they go back and say to their boss, well, this company's using this. And they'll say, oh, I think it's a good idea. Yeah. But Chris, you need to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so Chris Russel. So I actually just came off an ATS integration. So
there you go.
So I guess my advice there would be, ask a lot of questions up front, first of all. The more you know before you buy, the better. And Bridget, you're right. I asked around a lot based on talking to other, HR people, what ATS they use. That was my initial question to them as soon as I met them.
Right.
And, I got a lot of the same answers, iSIMS, JobBite, those kind of guys. That whole process took probably, I want to say, a couple of months of testing and getting demos from 5 or 6 vendors. We started back in June, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And, we ended up picking iSIMS in early July.
Oh, thank God.
Yep. Now, iSIMS was kind of I'll tell you a little story about iSIMS and what happened there, but it turned out to be a good product. As soon as we launched, we also bought the video components to do like video cover letters and send those out to candidates before we actually interviewed them. And that was a huge problem, it turns out, because we were recruiting for entry-level candidates for the cruise ships. And the problem was when we sent out the video invites, like maybe 20% of people would actually do them. That was the first thing I learned that technology couldn't solve was these entry-level kids do not want to do a video. And it was pretty disappointing. We paid for the video stuff, and they said that 80% is sort of a typical response rate with a video, but we were getting 20%. So it was a major snafu for us. It didn't work basically.
Right.
Well, in all fairness, I think you said it was more about who you were targeting than the tech, right? The tech works. Yeah. I actually just read an article about that yesterday about how a lot of times the ATS works, right? It does what it says it will do, but it doesn't. Sometimes using all the bells and whistles isn't the best strategy. You just have to use it for what it's best for and actually use it for the intended point, right?
Right.
Well, I always said, and I think, I wrote an article, I say it's the recruiters. I wrote an article called Your ATS Doesn't Suck, Your Recruiters Do. And it was, and let me say, Ashley is here and she's actually from iSIMS. I swear to God, I didn't know Chris was going to say that. That's why I was like, thank God. It was really scary. I really thought that he was about to say, and we didn't pick iSIMS because it sucked. And I was like, oh, crap. Me and Chris, we did not talk before this. Chris and I are Twitter friends. I did not talk to him before this, like ever, except for little doohickeys. And we only talk at 140 characters or less.
What is that?
I took away doohickeys and said 140 characters. Okay. So I fully agree with that. And I also, and this was a weird one because everybody's talking about Crystal. And there's 2 camps. There's the people who like it and the people who don't. I think it's like a horoscope. I think Katrina found that it worked. I just think it's like, it doesn't. But I was testing Hello Talent. Hello Talent is more of a sourcing and management tool. So they're redoing it so basically what it does, it allows you to have different pods. And then you can put the candidates that you find as a sourcer into these pods. It'll pull up their social media pictures, tell you everything about them. You can enter their addresses and all that stuff. And I said that Crystal would be a great integration for that tool if it was integrated. I wouldn't recommend people having that tool and then getting Crystal and then getting all the other stuff because then it can get too confusing. And I'd like to see more integration of products that makes sense because otherwise, when you do a formal ATS and you do your testing and then everybody's learning how to use that ATS, right?
Right.
So then they still want to add in new apps and they want to add in all these new things. And I think that's where it gets confusing. And then people aren't sharing with each other what's working and what's not.
Well, I think I know all of us actually have gone through an integration before. And if you give someone that doesn't have the pieces that they need, they'll just go use something else.
Why does that make you laugh, Bridget?
Just because we're going through integration right now.
I hate that's a good point. I hate our integration right now.
Great example.
something to say, especially when you're going to buy technology. At least this was from on my end. The sales rep is a really good indication as to how the company's going to treat you and what that sales process is like, because there's some wonderful technology out there, but maybe their sales reps are horrible, which means maybe their customer service is horrible. Maybe they're really pushy and really aggressive and they don't answer your emails or anything along those lines. That's the biggest indicator, especially when you're going to the integration stage and the implementation stage. It needs to be handheld, hands-on, white glove service. And if it's not, it's a horrible experience and you don't want to use it.
Yeah.
But you have to test.
You know what surprises me?
You have to test, yeah.
What surprises me is that when I went through the integration, they handed me off to a implementation person. But it turned out I was more technical than the implementation person was.
Oh,
I ended basically configuring iSIMs essentially almost by myself, and I was surprised at that. They didn't give me more of a more hands-on on their part in getting things set up. There were things I missed that they could have told me about. I mean, in the end, it worked out. I got it up, but I was surprised that they didn't give you more of a technical resource in the implementation process there.
I think that what happens, like, especially when you're testing, they send you like a product development person that knows the ins and outs of the tool, but then the person who's in the field or that's helping you do the implementation is either a high level help desk person who doesn't really understand recruiting or how people will use it.
They understand,
or they're more of a feel good salesperson who doesn't. It just seems to be either way. And I think that they should have either trainers or they need to have product developers do the implemenation and really try to customize it.
Yeah.
But I was wondering,
told us to learn on your own. They sent us the videos and their
right.
help like that. And that was great. And I tried to train the recruiters as much as I could, but it's hard. It's they went from Taleo to iSIMs, and the recruiters themselves, they had a harder time with it than I did.
how many recruiters?
3. They're all young too, like 3 young recruiting assistants, basically.
Okay.
And,
So one of them looked at the videos.
very, very little. I mean, I had like 2 sessions.
Only 20%.
You don't want to know the drop-off rate of those video views.
I bet.
Go back just a little bit though, because another one of the reasons why I wanted Bridget to join us is because she is a spreadsheet master.
Oh,
so she has this like massive spreadsheet that kind of tells you how you make the decision, and like not how you make the. Can you explain a little bit about your masterful spreadsheet?
Well, keep in mind that I was helping buy for clients. Does it make sense? Because it was an RPO. So I kind of had to know the ins and outs of every technology out there, whether it was the video interviewing or an ATS or an assessment, who they integrated with, if there was multi-global, if they were able to divide things. You know what I mean? Kind of the ins and outs of every technology. So you would just kind of lay it out with like, here's the key components. And I have those, more than happy to share with people. And then above you would write whatever. And it was like a checkbox type thing. So this way, when you were going through the demo, because I found more often than not, the sales rep obviously wanted to show you their bells and whistles, not necessarily answer your questions or even give you the moment to say, wait a minute, let's talk about my process. It was all about one size fits all. Not that that's a bad thing per se, but I had the ability to go through and say, for this particular client, these are like the 15 things that this particular technology has to have or who they have to integrate with.
Yeah. It's like a technical level matchmaking. I keep thinking back to, like the Patty Stanger or whatever on Bravo. And she'd be like, okay, what's your most important quality that you need in your person, and work that way. So, Chris, what was the most important thing that was helping you make the decision when you were deciding iSIMs versus everybody else?
Well, part of it was, the requirements of the recruiting process itself internally. So, we basically recruited by week, running training classes for the ships. So we had to basically fill a class every week.
Wow.
We had to basically filter through a lot of people quickly, get them scheduled, get them interviewed. Every candidate, the recruiter was doing 35 interviews a week over Skype. So speed was definitely a factor in that. Mm-hmm. And just those internal processes were some of the major factors. We needed some things like email alerts to go out after they put the candidate into a certain step in the process, and some of the other softwares did not have that built in. So I did. The video component was nice because it was built in. We also put the onboarding package, which was built in as well, versus some of the other ones who use third-party additions for that. So kind of the all-in-one solution. The fact that they had customer service you could actually call.
Yeah.
Because Taleo you cannot call.
I hate that. We all hate that, actually.
I was calling help desk like pretty much every day as soon as we launched, just learning stuff and fixing things. That was a big help.
Yeah, because inevitably there's nuances, right? There's that, if you don't have this box checked 3 layers deep, it's not going to do XYZ that we said it would. I know I've ran into
things, months after we launched.
Yeah, because it took you, is that how long it normally takes? I've never integrated an ATS personally, but is 6 months pretty average for?
Actually, we did it in 6 weeks.
Oh, I thought you said
it took us like a year.
So you started vetting in June, right?
Yep.
Talked through everyone, and then you took,
And that was with importing all your candidates and past processes and.
So the candidates came later. I downloaded them from Taleo later, and we uploaded the resumes later. We didn't really care too much about that data because they couldn't rehire the people. So it was just 10 candidates in there. So that wasn't that important to us. So basically, it took 6 weeks. Started in mid-July. I had the site live by September 1st.
Wow.
I made sure I get all the aggregators, re-index the jobs. That was kind of the one major thing I had to do. Redo all the job listings. 6 weeks. I was pretty technical, so I think I was able to do it faster than most people could. But I'm still shocked that most HR departments don't have a resource like me in house. Mm-hmm. So no wonder it takes them 6 months to get this stuff live because it is very technical.
How long does it?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, how long does it take? I'm just asking in your experiences.
In my experiences, I think it kind of depended upon the client because there's some clients that they're very decentralized and maybe they're a global organization. So every process is completely different. So, if you're going across a global scale, 20 countries, something along those lines, we usually would roll it out in phases, like all US based. And then we would do, this and this, or US first and then UK. So I think that's the reason for the delay is when it's a global company, but there's not a centralized process.
Well, and if they have it depends too on what the internal politics are and who's going to help kick it off. If it's the internal IT group, and a lot of people, that's a big issue. I think with us, I say start to finish, it took a year and a half, but that was from the testing phase. I was senior recruiting manager for a company. We had 10,000 employees, but we also had 12 recruiters. 4 were spread throughout the U.S. and everybody had a different function. One recruited salespeople, it was independent living. So we had to recruit everything from janitorial staff and waiters and chefs all the way to high technical people, DBAs and CEOs. So that's what took forever. But I was going to ask you guys, who was involved in your testing process? Did you invite those groups when you did the testing in IT or all the recruiters, or did you just keep that at a high level?
At least for us, it would start off with me and a few other people, and we would kind of test basically the masses. And then after we kind of narrowed it down, then we would bring in a sourcer, we would bring in a recruiter, we would bring a recruiting manager. That's kind of how it rolled out for us, at least.
And how many softwares did you test before you made a decision?
Oh, wow. Probably, probably in all honesty, 12, maybe.
Enterprise solutions.
Mm-hmm. And then we would narrow it down to 3. But at the same time, we needed, because we did have accounts, because it was RPO, we had some that were smaller accounts. So that was the reason for testing 12, was because I had to test for enterprise. I had to test for mid-market, high growth. And then I had to test for small accounts.
So how many do you test, Chris?
Probably 6 or 7. Yep. I make sure I got demos. I could log in myself and play around with it.
Right.
That was with iCIMS, there wasn't a lot of data in there. And the one thing I wish I had done more with iCIMS was on the reporting side, because the reporting on iCIMS, it's not easy to use. It's pretty technical. And that's one thing I didn't test as well. So I kick myself a little bit, not getting more into that. That's the one thing I had a hard time learning myself once you go live, was the reporting stuff.
So in my experience with integrations, where I run into issues is that we spend so much time testing, right? Because it's hard to get people to make a decision. So how do you kind of push people from test to implementation and that decision making? Like, do you stack rank on your top 3 requirements? Do you kind of make people use it for a week? How do you kind of push from test to actual choice?
To hijack the process and tell them this is what you're getting, period, and walk out the room and pray for
at the end of the day, I think a lot did come down to price and how they would work
when
with
you get
us.
down to your top 3, all things being equal, it is price.
Yeah, it's price. And it also comes down to not just price, but not all organizations have the ability to pay upfront for a year or 2 years or 3 years. Can they work it out where you can pay quarterly, or is it a monthly, depending on the technology?
Well, sometimes it's per seat. And
again, it depends on the technology. I feel like we're talking a lot about ATSs, but it kind of depends upon just
per seat and monthly too. So
right. He said, I was looking at Lively Debate, and it was a good point because it reminds me of what we do, because a lot of people aren't sure what to test, and we do that at Recruiting Daily. We'll test a lot of I test freaking tools every day. If you ever don't see articles for 3 days, it's either because my kids are in trouble or I'm testing software. I don't post anything that I don't test, and some of them I get really confused. But I think what's important is that when we, like at Recruiting Daily, because we test so many tools and we're part of so many organizations, that we usually start with the things that people get wrong. Mm-hmm. I have a 3 strike. If you can't parse a resume, it doesn't have any mobile configuration, and I can't change the questions that you have in there or the features or the order or rename it, I'm done. I just can't take it. Yeah. I don't know. I'm too busy, I guess.
I see somebody's question over here. I know you would never outsource somebody else to test it for you. You obviously have to do it yourself, and it needs to be somebody in-house, I think, just from your own process, because no 2 organizations are the same.
And the more you can get your recruiters involved, the better, because they're going to be using it. So
it's buy-in early also.
Right.
Yeah, most certainly.
What's the worst experience? Has anyone had a really, really, really bad experience with either you chose the wrong one or...
Oh, yeah.
Monster? Just kidding.
From a standpoint of, at least when you're on the buying side, you know what I mean? They always give you the roadmap of what's to come, because maybe they don't have the feature now. Oh, that's going to happen in Q1, Q2 next year, and it just doesn't happen. I think that's one of the biggest things. That's the most annoying thing, especially very early on, as you get to that Q2 and it's like, it's not happening. Where is it? That would be a big problem.
Well, I think the biggest problem I've run into is when I've already made the decision and then people start bringing me more information. That's kind of been, so the example I'm using is I actually completely set up someone's Salesforce integration, which is a marketer's ATS. That's for anybody who doesn't use Salesforce. So marketer's ATS. And there's a lot of buying involved in that, right? Because you need to kind of move people through the process. It mirrors the recruiting process. Marketing is recruiting. Bada bing, bada boom. Buzzword bingo, everyone. Yeah. But we move people through the process. We have to automate some of the content. We have to, move them from one person to a customer service rep if they buy, et cetera, right? You need to assign a customer to a person. There's just a lot of nuance to that. And what ended up happening was I was trying to do this remote. And so I visited the team, a few times during my research stage, but basically I should have been taking over a cubicle and sleeping in there if I actually wanted all the information, because actually really mapping out their sales process was far more intricate than it actually was. And so when we went into Salesforce, we built out everything, we got it working. And then it was one of those, oh, well, what about this? Oh no. No, we can't. And I'm sure you guys run into some of that too. Like getting that extra piece of, well, I really wish it could do X. And you're like,
tweaking after the fact.
yeah.
Or it's the fact that organizations sometimes will buy for right now, and they don't necessarily know the full business strategy that the company's planning on growing, in so-and-so or, expanding. And so they don't buy for tomorrow. They buy for right now. I think that's also one of the biggest mishaps.
Yeah. There are things too, when you're buying technology software for recruiting. I mean, there's going to be a certain amount of things that you don't know yet, right? You don't know what you don't know yet. So expect that for any implementation, no matter what software it is. Technology has its limitations sometimes, so you have to be accepting of that, and work with what you have, basically.
I think one of the biggest mistakes is not including IT or getting a project manager / business analyst in on the process, because I mean, not from the developer standpoint, but from an IT infrastructure standpoint, they're kind of like recruiting, in that they're kind of the stepchild of what's going on. And sometimes if they're planning major integrations they're doing upgrades for the accounting department, for the, sales department, for whatever else. And then they might not be able to work it. Sometimes you might need a completely, a separate server, depending on what kind of reporting you're going to be doing. So I think, or, you want to have it in the cloud, but what else is in there? Who's going to control the information? Who's going to be responsible for the upgrades and the upkeep of it, the software? And then, and this is really on a big enterprise level.
Right.
I think that's a big process. And also think that, and I used to be an IT business analyst, so I'm a little bit, I understand why it, yeah. I mean, a business analyst is a translator, right? So you have to figure out the technology and talk to the recruiters to see if this can actually be done.
Yeah.
And so with the business analysts are going in there, or a project manager, a good one anyway, they're going to ask you like, what's going to be successful? What is your number one priority? What is your nice to have to have? And, this would be nice level.
Yeah, who understands tech, who speaks tech in order to do this correctly, I think. So.
Right. Which kind of goes back to our friend over here, Lively Debate, that was talking about that. Like, I think that IT recruiters, especially if you're on that level, you have to understand IT. And just as much as if you're going to do this, you have to understand the technology side. Somebody on the team needs to understand the technology side before implementing any type of software and figuring out why you need it. Like, I want to know Chris, why'd y'all have to change from Talea?
Oh, because Talea was just.
I mean, because it's a pain.
All the reports were broken. I couldn't even I had no sources of higher data. It was just a mess.
How long did you use it before you figured that out?
Well, they had it there for years before I got. I inherited it, and as soon as I got there, I was like, "We have to change because this is not working." It wasn't mobile friendly at all. They want like a third party integrator to come in and spend $20,000 and fix it for us. I was like, "Forget it."
Yeah.
Yeah. I keep this on my desk from an old job, because when we would make huge mistakes, everyone would be like, "That is a big mistake." And when I thought, I have to have it. And this is how I feel when I go into a company and they're like, we've had it forever. I'm like, let me get the big eraser.
Doesn't mean it's a good idea.
If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
What percentage of Talea were you using? Like 20%? Because I feel it's almost like too big, if that makes any sense. Like it's cumbersome.
Just for job postings and just the recruiters seeing the candidate. That was it. There was no reporting going on. It was just so bad. I mean, zero data I can get out of it.
That's awesome. Why don't you just use an Excel spreadsheet when it's much cheaper?
It's bad.
I'm getting frustrated with companies that are going into the ATS instead of the business right now that don't have the background.
That's 95% of them.
Not for SMB, not so much, but like.
I think the new crop is getting better.
Huh?
I think the new crop of ATSs are getting better. they're starting to.
They're more agile. I
Yeah.
They're
think.
not trying to get all crazy. You know, they don't
Right.
offer like a free massage with it. You know, all of them are like nuts. There's too much, and that's where you get too clunky. They're already too difficult to understand in the first place. If you don't understand, then they
Yeah,
keep.
ATS has to be easy to use, so you have to simplify it as much as possible. That's why Taleo is losing customers. I mean, it's all about ease of use and speed. For
Well,
your
and you know, with Taleo, it was a bad candidate experience from jump. You had to sign up for Taleo, then you had to answer all of these different questions. You could never get through the process. If you tried to apply for another company, you would have like an automatic Taleo login. It's not my favorite.
There are worse ATSs, people.
Which one?
Virtual Edge, ADP's like dinosaur.
Oh, I hate Big Biller. I wrote an article about Big Biller.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I was like, and
amazing how
everybody
many
loves
old
them.
platforms are still out there being used.
Which one?
What?
It's amazing how many old platforms are still out there being used.
It's because there's people that just don't like change, and so they
Well,
won't
there's
change.
some you
But
can't-
then they have to learn something new, and then they like they're very comfortable.
Well, and they don't have a Chris. They
don't have a Chris
who gets it.
I'm available.
Well, seriously though, I mean, they don't have someone who can poke holes and say, why aren't you reporting on this, and actually provide the value. I mean, I've talked to people all over the country at this point who will say, well, I don't know. They don't know what they don't know, right? A dashboard, you don't know how to build a dashboard if you don't know what to measure, right? So we're sitting here, we, the four of us, we get it, right? So we're kind of 2 steps ahead. And I think the hard part to realize is that most people are 2 steps behind, right? So we're like, okay, slow it down. How do we, kind of work through this? And I love what Lively Debate just said about having an expiration date.
Yeah. Nothing's forever.
Just saying in 2 years, we need to evaluate if it's still working. Because most companies don't have benchmarks like that. I know no company I've ever worked at has a benchmark where they're like, does it work?
And again, you have to figure out if it's a software problem or a people problem.
Yeah.
Because of switching over to a new software, like we've been saying, we're in an integration and we just integrated. I haven't used it one time because I get confused every time. And poor Bridget has to train me on it. And I just haven't been using it. Hi guys, sorry. So if you're looking for mob reports, it's a Excel spreadsheet in Gmail.
So I have a question. What's a good example of a time when it's actually a recruiter problem, not an ATS problem? One that could be confused.
Customer feedback or candidate feedback, they'll have some built-in modules that you can customize, but they aren't customizing it or doing any A/B testing or following through, but they're usually built-in automatic. That's a recruiter issue.
I was going to say, when your reporting isn't matching up because your recruiter's not advancing people, if you will, through steps, or not actually inputting people, and then it's like a nightmare, especially if you're ever going to get like an audited.
Well, it sucks when people are doing it from like Outlook. A lot of companies, before they go to a formal ATS, are doing it from Excel spreadsheets or Outlook, and then it doesn't easily port over, and you're used to doing it that way. That's a hard one to get off of.
The recruiter has to follow the processes that are outlined on the ETS. You have to move that candidate to the next stage,
right?
For the data to be recorded correctly,
right?
That's a problem in many companies.
Yeah. Well, then what happens is you don't know if you've talked to the candidate, who's talked to the candidate, and then they don't want to work for you anyway.
Yeah. When we were at Taleo, no one was recording hires, so I had no clue how many hires we had. I mean,
why would you not record a hire?
Well,
just out of curiosity.
Internal issue that I had to deal with. So
operator error.
Big mistake. Absolutely.
I said got them to do it, so we started getting the data. So
I wanted to ask. I think some of the stuff that's an issue. Well, I think all these latest trends and all of these hiring for what's the word? I've been writing a lot about it. People are hiring for culture. And it's the latest thing and everybody has to have it. I don't think any of them integrate. And if they do, they just pick their favorite tools to integrate with. but that's like again, it's kind of like a golf course decision, which makes it difficult for everybody. I think it's also a problem with recruiters if they download on their own and don't tell anybody else what they're using.
You know that happens a lot, right? Free tools.
Yeah. Duh, I write about them every day. Also, bring your own device is a problem right now. Because that information isn't getting logged in, so you don't know if everybody has it. You're not really, either it's not configured for all phones and mobile phones, or iPads or things like that. And then if you're not utilizing your ATS system and you're just going on the cloud on your phone, it makes it even worse because you can't tell. Like those people, you may not get any of the information if they use them on separate basis. Some people use their corporate in-house and then they use like Gmail or some other account outside on their phones. But I think bring your own device is causing a lot of problems for companies.
Well, I think mobile in general is causing some problems for ATSs across the board. I think, well, we all looked at iCIMS and saw their kind of mobile experience. Chris, what's your perception of their mobile experience, or how's that going for you?
I actually like their mobile experience. It's very smooth. I love the way the job descriptions look. It's one of the bigger reasons I chose them. I also like JobVites as well. JobVite has a nice mobile experience. And I really had a hard time deciding between the two of those. Those are my top two when it came down to it. iCIMS just had some other features that a few other features that JobVite didn't, but the mobile experience was a big reason I chose it. And after we switched, our applications increased, so we got a better ROI on our spend out there because we were getting more applications coming in versus what we had before. So to me, it was a win.
Chris, what part of your vetting was spent on the hiring manager experience when it came to your ATS? Like my whole thing was nothing at all.
Because our recruiters basically were the hiring managers.
Okay.
So we don't. The way they worked at American Cruise, it wasn't a big hiring manager environment there. It was really more about the recruiters. Because once they came to training, then that's basically when they got hired. It wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
All right, so here's another question. So we know that automation is a fine line, right? Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it doesn't. And it can make HR feel a little more technical, like it feels like a robot, right? And it hurts the perception of recruiters, in my opinion. What kind of automation features are important to an ATS that you think, do help either behind the scenes or with candidate communication?
Oh, wow, there's so many.
I think rejecting candidates is important.
Yeah.
Or letting people know that you received the resume and letting them know in a nice, gentle way. Better than you'd have to customize it, but I think it's important to let them know that they're out of the running.
Yeah.
Also, in iCIMS, there's the candidate dashboard. It shows them what stage of the process they're in.
Mm-hmm.
A little green line, whatever it is. That's very good to keep the candidate informed. Any other automation in terms of emailing the candidates on the recruiter's behalf, once we went into a certain stage, it sent out an automatic template with their candidate name filled in with some pre-information about the job itself to learn more. That helped the recruiter as well, just speed things up.
I was going to say the assessments being sent. Yeah. Assessments being sent, pre-hire forms, delayed emails, I think is very important also. Because if somebody's applying to a job at Friday at 8 p.m. at night, they should not get a rejection letter Friday at 8:05 p.m. It should at least wait until Monday. So I think delayed emails are very important.
I never even thought about that before. That's a good one.
Yeah. Because obviously nobody's looking at it at 8:05.
Oh,
when it goes back to this whole, they don't get how the recruiting process works. I have a friend who is applying to a job, like a pretty senior job, marketing. And the issue is she's like, why aren't they getting back to me? I'm like, you're waiting on a CMO to make a decision. It takes a long time. They're busy. Just be patient. It's okay. This does not mean no. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm going, well, maybe the recruiter didn't send the email. Maybe You know, like how's that going to play
no
out?
idea how long the hiring process takes at a lot of companies.
I was going to say, going back to your automation with what you're saying is, at least in my instance, back in my recruiter days, you could email, let's say, over like a batch of candidates to a hiring manager. They say yay, nay, whatever it is, for them to be able to get like little emails. Hey, still waiting on you. Hey, still waiting on you. It was like a timed thing where you had the ability to see they've reviewed it. They actually made comments. They got back to me. That was very important.
I think, and when talking about automation, the other thing is with job postings, like that it automatically goes and sends it to multiple job postings. You can waste a lot of time.
Or that it automatically comes down when the job has been hired and filled. That's kind of
that
important.
too.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're wasting
also making sure that you can select what type of job and making sure it goes to the right job boards. I know that there's a company based in the Netherlands, and they actually, part of their process is knowing what the job category is, and then they will go through and pop up the most common ones based on the job category, so that you're not just sending it blindly. But if you don't have that automatic part, it takes for freaking ever. A lot of copy pasting.
Yeah, lots of copying.
Yeah, it's like a mail. I got a podcast to do at 11.
Sorry.
Chris, don't. So everybody, just so you know, don't show up early. You will be a part of the. Everybody who's the first
pull you right onto this.
Will get in.
Show up early.
This is great. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk soon. I appreciate your insight. I've never talked to you in more than 140 calories. Calories where my head's at. I need breakfast. All right. Well, see you later. I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye, Chris.
All right.
That was awesome.
What I love about Blab though is that we can just like bring people on and it's a free conversation.
Yeah. Right.
And I love that he's an iSIMS customer, which makes it even better.
Seriously, that could have gone so sideways. All of our faces would have been like, oh.
No, and I like that. I like having, that's why we have Bridget on the call today. And I think that's why you're always really great about writing really honest recruiting tools reviews, is because we're users. I think people forget that we're not all just writers. We're not all just the people like hiding in the wings. We actually have done this at some point, or worked in companies that provide job services, like, working at Monster for me. I think all of us, we have a unique perspective, and I love that we can just bring people on and have a conversation.
Well, and I think it's important to remember, I think back in the day, I tested iPhones a long time ago, and I didn't like it. I didn't mean to do that. Hold on.
What's happening? Oh, your headset.
Is it better now? It was usually worse.
No, not really.
Technical difficulties. If we didn't have one, it wouldn't be a Blab.
No question. I realize we only have 8 minutes, but is there anybody in here that wants to talk about something other than ATS? Because I do feel like we talked a lot about the ATS world. Granted, he just integrated one.
Instead of the other software.
It is the mothership of recruiting. Let's just be real here. So, I get that.
Well, I think when we talk about like the software, like the really heavy lifting software, ATS is number one. What else would you even put up there as far as like the must-have built, has roots?
A recruiting CRM, like a true one that does like, the candidate engagement piece, because if that's done correctly, that's that's big.
Yeah.
It's very big.
Totally. And but when you two were recruiting, I think that was still the whole marketing to recruiting were like butts and seats.
That was just started.
We are not that old.
Huh?
I was
I am.
I was
still
recruiting 2 years ago, wacko. And it was about getting cash in pocket.
Exactly.
Not butts
and seats, cash in pocket. Yeah, you call it like it is, whatever it is.
I think those are the important ones. I think it's candidate management at its best. I think some people don't have that piece. I think that the feedback is becoming a big deal. Right now, I think the other ones are going to be some type of scraping tool. I think you can't do it anymore without it. The problem has always been, it used to be quality, and then it became speed, and then it was speed and quality. And I don't think I don't think that you can do it without some type of technology. But
I was going to say, in the future, I think the ATSs that are going to win the race are going to be those that are predictive, especially when you're thinking of the job posting. Here's the job that we've had 5 times in the past 6 months or whatever it is in this exact same location. Tell me where these hires are coming from, and that's the only place I want you to post.
That's from one in analytics does that.
Right, but I'm saying from a standpoint of then you need to have the ATS that's integrated with that, like right now. You know what I mean? Like that's just like an automatic integration, or it needs to be an ATS that has that built in.
Yeah,
that's freaking expensive though. Right now, it's going to take a while before it's going to be able to implement it. I mean, serious. I mean, I love the product, but if I was going to get one in analytics, I have to give them both my dogs and my kid. It is freaking expensive.
Which kid though?
Right now, Hannah's the only one home. So, bye, Hannah. Thanks for making cinnamon rolls.
She heard your 140 calories and she felt for mama.
She did. She was like, oh, my mommy's been driving a very long time today. But well, let's think about it a minute. What other recruiting softwares, whatever the other recruiting tools are indispensable? I think the big question is, do you need LinkedIn Recruiter or not? Is a question that I think a lot of companies.
Well, if you send too many emails, they kick you out. So
only if you have red hair, though.
Only if you have red hair and you live in South Carolina.
Right. Yeah, that all the South Carolinians need to.
I think the Recruiting Daily stance on LinkedIn is well known, and if people don't,
that's Matt Charney's stance.
The Matt Charney stance. I'll go on the Matt Charney bus. I have not seen.
I loved LinkedIn Recruiter back when I was using it. I will say that.
But the response rate on InMails is going down so significantly.
Remember, she hasn't recruited since she recruited Moses to part the sea.
But seriously, you are in the same groups I am, and the same Facebook like sourcing communities that I'm in, and they're closed communities, so people are very honest. And all those people are saying, I think the top complaints I'm hearing is, I don't get any responses. I'm not finding any information I can't find somewhere else.
But see, the thing is that seriously, it was like the first. I mean, it didn't come out that. I mean, we're talking about 2012, like 2010, when
2011?
Yeah, right. 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. Because it used to be you had the professional side where you can see more first and second degrees. Now, that was when I was really hardcore Boolean, so I could steal all of that stuff on the back end. My poor friend, I used to send her, if you send a candidate, I don't know if this is a problem anymore. If you can't view like a third-party candidate and you email the candidate and share it with somebody else, and then you go back into your sent mail, then you can see the name of the candidate, their information. Just saying. So my friend, I used to send her email. I'd be like, just kidding, don't look at this all day long in order to see it. But I think now there's a lot of different tools that have figured out the silver bullet for LinkedIn. So that seems to be what's happened a lot, right. I think. So it's obsolete now, but not really, because all of these programs are getting it from LinkedIn.
I think from a
every time I post on LinkedIn, Matt responds in 2 seconds. So his ass is on there.
I think from a talent mapping perspective, LinkedIn is still the go-to, just because you can see like this person graduated from this school and they went to work at this one and then this one and then this one. And if a company wants to, I want to hire all of Microsoft's software engineers at this level, well, they have the ability to go back and track what school did they go to, what was the previous job prior to that, and find trends that way. They're still the only ones that have that.
Right.
I know.
I'll give that to you. I just think it's too expensive for what it is. And two, based on the data, there's an imbalance here because recruiters are spending a ton of time on LinkedIn. Job seekers are not. Job seekers are spending a ton of time on Facebook. And as Facebook profiles become more robust, I guarantee you they will figure out some way to offer a recruiter view or some kind.
They already are.
Everybody needs to get on there now that they still have the graph and that still have the Facebook UID. You better get on it now because you can get so much information and they're going to cut that stuff off.
Well, I was talking to someone yesterday and I said, okay, yeah, maybe your IT database, blah, 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 isn't on Facebook, but his wife is.
Yeah.
The recruiter was like, oh.
And his cousin and his mother-in-law.
And I was just like, I bet you she has some input. I bet you. I'm just saying. And she was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like that little light bulb moment.
Well, I think
like, did you notice that his wife is mayor of the city? Like, how are you going to get out of town? You're not going to.
Good info. Yeah.
You know? That's right, Dante Goods.
I think that's Kobe.
You can get it.
Looks like Kobe.
We're all looking at this little
going down the
picture.
corner.
Oh, it's not a Kobe picture. But from
Kobe?
it looks like a Kobe picture.
It's Dante.
Brian.
He's stronger than you. Duh.
Basketball player.
really small.
Yeah. But it's really small. I think that's a compliment, so I'd keep it.
Seriously, we are dorks.
I think recruitment marketing is going to get really sophisticated moving forward from an advertising standpoint, just getting in front of people's faces.
Yeah.
I think that's going to become a little bit more sophisticated, which is going to just change the process in general.
Absolutely.
And,
now, I'm wondering
who you have on TA.
Do you think that the marketing for recruiting, what do you think about like content? People are trying to do content share software. I'm stumbling on my words, where they're trying to write blogs and then they're trying to send it out to a lot of different
the candidates, you mean? Okay.
What do you think about those type of tools? Because they're putting them in as a marketing tool and then as a nurturing tool, but really it's like a new level of spam.
Exactly. It's the same thing as sending job posts because you don't
I think it depends on what it is. I don't need job, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't want the same company to send just job postings and job postings and job postings. But if it's useful information and you happen to be an active candidate at that moment, I could see this more so for like the entry level. Here's how to interview. Here's how you should dress. Here's what's new. You know what I mean? Like, here's what they're expecting, that type of information. Or just, hey, here's what's happening at our company right now from just like an own employee engagement perspective. Happy employees, as long as it's not cheesy. And stock photos. The stock photos suck.
John Sumser wrote an article about this, about how there's a lot of value in having a I would like to work at your company someday group. So kind of separating people out. So how I would nurture it as a marketer is I would say, for the first 30 days post apply, you're considered active to me. You're actively looking for a job. I have to assume after, let's say 60 days that you have made some kind of connection and you're in some kind of process or you're not a good fit. And then nurturing those people into the would you like to work at our company someday group and pushing them along because they're not always going to be looking for a job. And the issue with what Jackye was saying to me is that it is spam because we're hitting everyone without knowing anything about
Forever.
Background. We're just assuming because you applied once, you're always active. And that's not true.
For 13 years. But the other problem is I think that they're going to need to, thanks for laughing at that joke. I think that they really need to try to do some like real research as to what candidates respond differently based on the message and what's going to be important to them. I think IT candidates are going to be different than accounting candidates, are going to be different than admin candidates. And I also get nervous with what you were saying, like, do you want to work at our company someday? Because some people just are not ever going to be a good fit for your company. Like I say that, but I hate it when like somebody's applied for every single job at your company. You can totally see it at the ATS. They've already been invited
multiple
in.
Profiles, 5 different emails. They're
They've
just
applied.
trying to be
They've come in for an in-person interview and they are not a good fit. And then you say, do you want to work at our company? And then those are the crazy psychos, very small group. But there has to be some kind of
filter.
Yeah, which would have to be a person, I think.
Yeah. The too active filter. Okay, get out of here.
The accept you filter.
Yes. No, because you're absolutely right. There's always a crazy, and you don't really want those people in your talent community, wherever you host it, Facebook or otherwise. But I do think there's some value in kind of taking people from acknowledging that people are going from I'm actively seeking a job at your company to I have a career, but I would be interested in working at your company someday. Because that's a huge opportunity for employer brands. I mean, your employer branding team to actually nurture people and build a reputation outside of your company that's not everybody who already works here talking, and trying to make everybody happy that works there already.
Right. I agree. Well, and that's why I don't think people should automatically push stuff out on Twitter, but I think it's important to have that social recruiting piece.
What do you mean you don't think it's to automatically push jobs out on Twitter?
I don't want people to push jobs on Twitter. It's the worst in the world.
Tweet is a job.
But that's the reason why I think some companies have their own, like, at so-and-so jobs. You know what I mean? Like, it's that one. So if you want to go and follow it and see what they are offering.
But isn't it a better strategy to have the hiring manager tweet that job?
Yeah, with more information. What I'm saying is
the hiring manager's on Twitter.
Touche.
Listen, don't clog my Twitter feed with 25 I'm hiring accountants in Seattle, and you get like 30 of them in a row. It is bad, and it is annoying, and then all it does is put them backwards, because you have to take the time in those. Social media is supposed to be social. It's like driving by billboards, and that's not what that tool is used for.
Although I really like Dice's billboards, just saying.
Yeah, but everybody knows that I love my Twitter, and I don't like people messing with my Twitter. I already have an issue with the heart. I wish they would go back to stars, but
you need the heart. I'm with you on the heart. I don't love it. I like it.
I don't love it.
Maybe just for the month of February, for Valentine's Day.
National Heart Health Month.
You're gonna have clovers and did you know we're coworkers? Our meetings are pretty short. That's next idea.
I don't like
it. And then swimming pools in July, or flags. And then in August we can have palm trees.
Sunshines. Just big sunshines. Snowflakes in January.
Rotation.
I can really do this all day.
Yes. I think we all could think about it. Well, maybe a nice little cat video with a hat.
That cat was pushing stuff off the table.
That thing was so freaking funny.
I know.
Anyway,
I should share that link, but it has too many F words. So
I know. That being said, does anyone have questions? We're rolling up. It's 9:56. You can't ask questions. If you do the /Q, then it goes up over here.
That never worked for me.
Or you can tweet any of us anytime. You can see our Twitter handles on our little headshots, top of this area.
And we're on there.
Yeah, and we're actually on. So if you want to talk to us, we're not the people who schedule all of our tweets. We actually monitor it and look at it. We're also all reachable via @recruiting-blogs. And
I'm sorry, Hannah would like to make her appearance.
Oh,
hi, Hannah.
Hannah.
Hello. Good morning.
Okay, bye, Hannah.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's called virtual remote workforce.
She's in the back trying to sneak in.
That's your child, for sure.
I gotta go. Questions? Seeing none.
I don't see any questions.
Next week on Wednesday at 9. I don't know what we're talking about yet, so I hope you're on Twitter.
Holiday.
If anybody wants to join, you can tweet us a topic.
The first one here gets on the show.
Yep. Well, that was easy.
I think we should probably do trends going into 2016 stuff.
Yeah.
Sounds about right, because we're not going to go on the next topic.
Or maybe the worst recruiting mistakes of 2015.
Ooh,
that could be
fun. I like that one.
I got lots of screenshots.
Names on that one.
Her being silly, so we can make this happen.
I don't want to mention any names, and I'll just go. Actually, they haven't done anything, but I think that would be fun. We won't mention any names.
I'll just magically appear in the background.
Buzzword,
right? Exactly.
This is my mistake of the year.
Buzzword bingo of 2015.
Buzzword cards I was mailed because I don't know them or what they mean.
This was my biggest mistake, was not sending somebody a graduation present. So if anybody would like congratulations 2015 graduation.
There are December graduates.
It's still 2015. So let me know. I'll send it to you for free.
You don't want this card about privacy perception?
No, but I did like the accent. That was very
Who
smart.
sent that? Really? Who sent that? You're not going to tell me? I want to know. That's
She's
silly.
like, I'll save that for after hours.
That's all.
Don't mention the name though.
All right, everybody, we're going to do this again next week. We hope to see you because this is fun. And yeah.
And she's looking for more mistakes. All right, bye guys.
Bye.